So good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to encourage folks, if you can put your name, maybe your company name in the chat while we wait to get started. I recognize that we're right after lunchtime and there might be a few stragglers, so I want to give it a few minutes before we get started. But again, please feel free if you have questions during the presentation to put them in the chat, and there will definitely be time at the end to ask additional ones as well. Okay, we'll give it one more minute and then we will get started. So I just wanted to welcome everyone to the annual contract open house. My name is Kimberly Beal. I'm the Assistant Deputy Director for Real Estate, responsible for the team that handles the leasing here at the Port. And hopefully you're joining us today because you're interested in becoming a Port tenant. So let me share my screen here. So today I'm going to be providing a very broad stroke about our leasing process here. So we're going to start with an introduction to the Port, talk a little about interim leasing, where the focus is going to be on lease opportunities that are not subject to competitive bidding. We're going to go over kind of the types of properties that are available at the Port and various uses, how you determine what space we might have available, and then a bit about the leasing process and what that timeline might look like. So to tell you a little something about the Port, our mission, as shown on the screen, the Port of San Francisco manages the waterfront as a gateway to a world-class city. It advances environmentally and financially sustainable maritime, recreational, and economic opportunities to serve the city, Bay Area region, and California. And our vision is to deliver a vibrant and diverse waterfront waterfront experiences that enrich the city and San Francisco Bay. So the Port of San Francisco is an enterprise agency. So we are a department within the city and county of San Francisco, and we're governed by a commission of 5 members that are appointed by the mayor. The Port is responsible for overseeing commercial, maritime, and public access facilities along the waterfront that are held in trust for the people of California. So this slide shows you the jurisdiction of the Port. It is approximately 7.5 miles of waterfront that span in the north, starting in the north from the Fisherman's Wharf area, going south to the India Basin area in the Bayview Hunters Point area near Pier 96. And along that 7.5 miles of waterfront, there's a lot of very diverse activities, and the Port seeks to support small local business who contribute towards commercial, entertainment, civic activities, and parks that complement a working waterfront, providing economic opportunity and waterfront destinations for all. The Port is committed to eliminating racial disparity in its policies, processes, and decisions. And we try to ensure that the land use policies directly support businesses, owners, and businesses from disadvantaged communities adjacent to Port property. And if you're interested in finding out more about the Port's diversity and equity goals, you can visit the website and that I'm showing below what the link is to get to the Port's diversity and equity website. So although there are a lot of diverse uses along the port, we are here to preserve the port's diverse maritime portfolio for the needs of cargo shipping, passenger cruise ships, ferry and excursion boats, water taxis, fishing industry, recreational boating, and water-dependent activities. But if you recall, I had mentioned that the port is an enterprise agency. So what does that mean exactly? So although we are a department within the city, the port receives no financial support from the city and relies on its leasing of port properties to generate revenue. So that's really how we operate. The port has over 500 commercial and industrial tenants representing more than 20 million square feet of occupied space. And this is strictly for the land side properties. This does not address the properties that are managed through our maritime division. And this provides an example of some of the various property types that we do manage on the land side. So there's a very diverse group of tenants, and again, a variety of property types that include office, warehouse, open land, piers, shed structures, and public open space. And the photos that are on the screen right now, if you're not familiar with what we refer to as shed structures, if you see here on the right, these buildings that are on the pier and extend into the water, those are what we call shed structures and are typically used for primarily for storage, although we do have other leases as well, or other uses as well, I'm sorry. And then on the left is an example of property that's used for more of some of our more industrial uses. So how can you find out if there's space suitable or space available that meets your needs? So if you go to the port's website, and at the top here, you will see it's sfport.com, and you go to the leasing page, you will find the page that's shown here on your screen, and there is a place where you can click for available properties. That will then take you to this sheet here. And what this shows is the various portfolios. So we have South Beach, which spans from the ferry building to Pier 40. We have China Basin, which is Piers 46 to 68, which is around the shipyard. You have what we call the Southern Waterfront, so that picks up from Pier 70 down to 96 in the India Basin. The Northeast Waterfront, which is Piers 1 to 33 and a half. And then heading furthest north is Fisherman's Wharf, and that portfolio is Pier 35 to Hyde Street Harbor. And so you'll notice here there is a location. It mentions the various piers. It might provide a seawall lot. And then it shows what the uses are available at that location. So we have office, shed, unpaved land, there's storage space, approximate square footage available. You'll notice in some cases there's a range available. That could mean that there's multiple properties available at that location. It might also mean that there's a space that's divisible. So we might have, here we're showing 7,800 square feet, but there might be a way to divide that where if your use is only 3,600 square feet, there could then be space available for your use. So let's say, and I'm looking for a space for, I want to do some storage. I'm looking in the China Basin area. Maybe I need about 3,000 square feet. I'm looking here and seeing there is shed space available. This provides you with the email for the property manager that is responsible for that portfolio. So you could then send them an email requesting additional information for these properties or the location that you're interested in. But what if you're not exactly sure where you're looking, or maybe there's multiple areas that you're interested in, or really just trying to find out additional information again on what's available? What are your options then? So you can go back to that same leasing page, and you'll notice here there's a place that says leasing inquiry form. If you click on that link, it will take you to a form, and this is only a partial form, but you'll see here it says I'm interested in. There's a drop-down menu where you can select the type of space you're interested in, provide information on the type of business that you have, what type of activities you're planning on doing at the space, desired square footage, the type of term you're looking for, and when you're hoping to get into the space. Once you submit your form, you will get a response back saying it has been submitted. It will let you know how long it should take for you to get a response. We hope within 48 hours, but there's should also be an email there where you can contact the front desk. So if you have not received a response, you can call the front desk and they can then put you in contact with the property manager responsible for that particular portfolio. So after you have determined there's a space you're interested in, you want to actually move forward with entering into a lease, then what is that process and what does that process look like? So you would need to first complete a lease application, and as part of that, we do ask for financial information. We then run a credit check. There is an internal, I'm calling it a pipeline review process that we go through. And what that does is it's an internal review to determine if there are any issues, concerns, problems with the use. Perhaps through a review, it's decided that or determined that there might be additional things required for your use. For example, let's say you want to put a container inside one of the sheds for storage space. Fire may then require that you drop sprinklers into that container. Or we've had situations where, let's say someone has looked at space at Piers 26 and Pier 28. They notice that Pier 26, there's someone that has a container, they're using it for storage, but they like the space at Pier 28. That's where they want to be to do something similar. During that internal pipeline review process, fire would flag it very quickly. Hopefully the property manager would bring this to your attention prior to getting to that point, that Pier 28 is not sprinklered, and therefore your use would not be allowed in that shed. So this is one of the reasons why it's very important for you to provide us with the information on how you're proposing to use the space so we can make certain that there aren't any issues, such as the one I just described, or again, there might be additional requirements that are made by one of the other reviewing entities, such as environmental. Perhaps you're looking at storing paint, and there would be special requirements needed with regards to perhaps a type of cabinet needed in which to store that product. So then after it has passed through the internal pipeline review and approval process, we get the site plan for your space, any disclosures that are needed internally, and then move on with drafting the lease. So once the lease is drafted, then it is sent out for execution. Sometimes there is some back and forth with negotiations, some questions regarding the process. So then that kind of gets into, well, how long does it take for me to actually get a lease after going through all these steps? So with the types of uses that I've described, again, looking at where the focus is on leasing opportunities that are not subject to competitive bidding and something that can be approved at the staff level. So those types of uses are office, industrial, storage. We're looking at leases that where the rent is at or above parameter, and parameter for us is market rate. The rent over the full term of the lease is under $1 million. The term is 1 to 5 years. For those type of agreements, I will say this general time frame listed here is kind of generous on the or extremely conservative, I should say, on the outside number of days. But I put this here because this is what is listed on our website. But I will say normally it will take 30 to 45 days to go through that process for a new lease. If the lease is a retail lease, and again, this is something I mentioned we're not really going over here, and those are that ones that need to, there's a competitive process, but maybe it's an agreement that is below parameter, or maybe it's at parameter, but over the term, it's over $1 million. It's over 5 years, so it could be 6+ years. All those agreements would need to go before the Port Commission for their approval. And that process could then take 90 days, maybe more, depending on our Port Commission calendar, how full it is, other things that are going before. If the commission has, if we take it before the commission, they have additional questions and want us to come back with to answer some questions, then that's automatically an additional 30 days for us to get it to the port on the port calendar again. So that could potentially then stretch out the timeline. And then I will say any leases that are over $1 million, if they're 10+ years, those all, in addition to going to the Port Commission, also have to go to the Board of Supervisors. So again, that could take 90 to 180 days for that process. So following this presentation, how do I connect with the port? You see here's the UR code that if you've been attending some of the workshops throughout the day, you might be very familiar with this code. And then there's also ways to get additional information by going to the port's website as shown below. So with that, I want to thank you for your time and I welcome any questions.
Hi, Kim. At this, I don't see any questions yet. So if you want to go ahead and enter your questions in the chat, I will go ahead and read them out loud.
Thank you, Patricia. There's one thing I do want to add that I did not mention. A frequent question we receive, a lot of times a tenant will say, well, I'm a nonprofit. Are there not rates for nonprofits? Or I'm an LBE. Do you have any special rates for LBEs? And as I mentioned before, the property that the port has is held in trust. And so therefore, we are required to get fair market for the property that we lease. Therefore, there are not any special rates, sometimes depending on the term of the lease. There can be a little wiggle room there. But again, we are still required to get fair market value for the property that we lease. And as mentioned, we are a enterprise agency, so we really do need those revenues to operate, because that is how the port makes its money.
I do have a question here, Kim.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like I currently am leasing approximately 1,700 square feet of yard space near Leonard Development, and I'm looking for yard space for portable restrooms and sinks. Can I apply for space?
I would reach out to the property manager that handles the southern waterfront, that's Monaco Corral, to have really have a conversation with what it is you're planning on placing on the property, what your space needs, so how much space you're looking for, so we can really get an understanding again of how the property would be used, so we can discuss with our environmental department, because I think they're the ones who might have some questions. One of the things too, with us being on the water, there are, regulations and concerns with how the properties are used to make sure we're not creating any environmental issues. So again, with that, I would reach out to Monaco to have a discussion, again, to get real additional details on your use and what it is you're proposing to place on the property. But thank you for that question.
Okay. I do have another comment from the person who asked the question. There will be no waste stored on property, only new equipment.
Understood. So again, as part of our pipeline process, as I mentioned, there's environmental planning as well as fire. That's part of that. And so they may have additional questions with regards to your use. So again, that's one of the reasons why it's we do have this internal review process, because there might be things that I feel are fine and don't have any concerns about, where it then goes to the regulatory side of things and they bring things to our attention that we weren't aware of. So where something might seem very like there wouldn't be any issues, they might have another opinion and a different interpretation.
Thank you, and she'll follow up with Monica Corral.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, looks like we don't have any. Feel free to go ahead and enter your questions in the chat, and I'll make sure to read them out loud. Maybe just give them a minute or so in case someone is writing up anything. But looks like we don't have any more questions, Kim.
Okay, well, I greatly appreciate everyone's time. If there are questions that come up, please feel free to reach out to me, or again, you can go to the website and contact any of the property managers for the areas that you're interested in. And hopefully we'll be seeing you as a port tenant. So thank you so much for your interest. I appreciate, again, everyone's time.